Hello, I'm Dr. Sade Turnipseed, and I bring you greetings from the Mississippi Delta. Today my paper is entitled From African Soil to the Mississippi Delta, and basically it is our perspective on safeguarding human security and well-being for rural women and girls and tools for empowerment. Our goal is to bridge the gap between African women on the continent and African women in the diaspora, particularly in the Mississippi Delta. Just as we feel about Black History Month and month-long celebrations of other diaspora cultures, we believe that every month is an opportunity to celebrate African women, the mothers of us all. That said, I do want to respect the month by paying homage to two fabulous women who made a difference not just here in Mississippi, but throughout the United States of America, and their enormous global impact using nothing more than their brains, grace, strength, and passion for justice, for their people, and their determination to embrace their Black girl magic. We shall begin and end with a bright light shining on injustice in America and the will to effect change throughout the world. It was 50 years ago that Mississippi cotton picker and sharecropper Fannie Lou Hamer gripped the nation's attention with her impassioned testimony about being forced from her home and brutally beaten for attempting to exercise her constitutional right to vote. Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where our lives be threatened daily because we want to live as decent human beings? Fannie Lou Hamer asked the Credentials Committee at the 1964 Democratic National Convention. Ms. Hamer arrived at the convention in New Jersey on a bus from Mississippi with more than 60 of her fellow sharecroppers, housewives, teachers, maids, deacons, ministers, factory workers, and business owners. Most were African American and many were women. They represented the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, the MFDP, who have followed all the rules to represent the state of Mississippi, registering members in public places, not making literacy a prerequisite for citizenship, holding open precinct meetings throughout the state, and selecting delegates at a statewide convention, making the political process seem healthy for the first time in the state's history. It was as close to a grassroots political convention as this country has ever seen, coming from behind the cotton curtain of the world, that women forced the Democratic Convention and the nation to grapple with the choice. Would only the all-white good old boy delegation be seated, despite the fact that they used state-sponsored terrorism and violated all the state and national constitution rules to keep out Africans born in America and the poor whites? Or with a delegation that had followed the rules and opened its doors to all be selected to represent the state of Mississippi? These folks were challenging the powers that be to recognize the existence of a whole group of people, white and black and disenfranchised, who made up the majority of their state and of this country. That recognition and acceptance would be the righteous thing to do and the right process to implement along the American democratic path to exceptionalism. Don't you agree? The white supremacist leadership of Mississippi actually had more than one chance to reach out and embrace a brighter future, but instead they reached backwards to try to preserve a shameful past and deplorable aspect of our American history. What would our society be like today if the white supremacist community had taken the high ground and denied the infamous Mississippi Code of Conduct. You must understand, Mississippi has historically been the epicenter of America's pain and a great example of the things we should not do. That is, if we are serious about becoming a great, humane society that we champion here in America. Unfortunately, the question of citizenship and fairness in the political arena is still as relevant today as it was in the past. Yet the history of Mississippi and its freedom efforts are rarely taught in our schools. Therefore, vital lessons and tools of empowerment through grassroots democracy are lost to our next generation. The MFDP is an important example and lesson to learn regarding the development of U.S. democracy and its foundational struggle. African American women like Fannie Lou Hamer forced the Democratic Party and the nation as a whole to live out its uncashed promise of one man, one woman, one vote. She and her team showed the world how cotton pickers and ordinary working people could participate in what is actually our $1, one vote electoral process. We can all learn from Mississippi's history how to take on the so-called Goliaths in politics, if only it is taught in our schools and churches. She also realized that students and young people should be encouraged to participate in grassroots politics because it is their enthusiasm and strategic thinking and outrage and moral integrity that allows the rest of us to see examples of small d democracy in action. And that is how democracy is supposed to work for everyone. In the words of Miss Fannie Lou Hamer, we didn't come all this way for no 2 seats when all of us is tied. It was 153 years ago that the planet was blessed with the birth of Miss Ida Bell Wells. We celebrate her passion for justice, her determination, and her spirit of knowing even enslavement will never squelch the internal flame that burns for justice, truth, and freedom. This is the woman who traveled alone through the backwoods of Mississippi and throughout the South to document the lynching of African men, women, and children. This is the woman who went where no man, no woman would dare go, often accompanied by only her pistol, in the most hostile southern place on earth, in order to document domestic terrorism known as lynching. Miss Ida was one of the finest, most radical journalists of her day. She wrote deliberately in simple words so that all could understand the story of our historic and sacrificial pain. She made sure that we would be equipped with the tools to never forget the price paid for our freedom and right to live, as Fannie Lou Hamer said, as decent human beings, wherever we choose to live on this earth. For women like Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, Miss Ida Bell Wells, and Grandmama Nim, who stood up for our civil, humane, and fair voting rights, it must be noted that there are too few historical sites, statues, and monuments that reference them at all. There are so few, in fact, that I render them negligible. For these and so many other women who showed up and showed out throughout the world, where are the monuments that demonstrate how truly thankful we are and how much we genuinely appreciate the sacrifices they made for the entire human family? What these women have taught and equipped us with is the knowledge that victories are not always as immediate or tangible as we would like. The big lesson being it is a long-term impact that matters most. Just look at the MFDP, who in spite of not being seated in the 1964 Democratic Party convention were able to break the back of apartheid within Mississippi and the Southern Democratic Party. The following year, the 1965 Voting Rights Act was passed, and there would never ever be another all-white good old boy delegation to the Democrats' National Convention again. This pivotal legislation would not have been possible were it not for the efforts of Miss Fannie Lou Hamer specifically, and the work of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party in general. Although lynching nowadays is more high-tech, according to Justice Clarence Thomas, it was the passionate determination of Ida B. Wells that shined a global light on that atrocious act of terrorism against Africans, and on those who stood beside us in the quest for justice that eventually broke the backs of open hood-wearing domestic terrorism in the so-called free and great society of the United States of America. But it was also Grandmama now. Those women who picked that cotton from kin to king, those women who made a way out of no way, but ain't never been properly thanked. Where are their statues, their monuments, their historical sites? Where are the monuments that sing the praises of women like you and me, everyday women, for showing up and showing out today and living our best life that we can, teaching and nurturing our families and loved ones every single day, with little to no appreciation, support, or recognition? As Dr. Maya Angelou said, for a long time our shoulders would sag and our heads would bow at the thought of enslaved Africans lying spoon-fashioned in the filthy hatches of slave ships. And then onto the auction blocks, which were built to generate great fortunes in this America and throughout the world. Our ancestors said, but sugar, it was our submission that made your world go round. We now turn our heads in bitter shame at the remembrance of those folks in the cotton fields. These were the fields where millions of us worked and made billions for folks like Trump and others, other than ourselves. What do you think will be unleashed on this earth when we find the courage of Miss Ida and Miss Fannie Lou to once again set the standard of protection by safeguarding and loving ourselves again? What do you think will be unleashed on this earth once we open up and release our magic right here, right now, where we stand today, on purpose? The world shall recognize who we truly are. Black girl magic. The women and girls of the Mississippi Delta are still challenged to make a way out of no way. We've done it so many times before, and if we depend on our black girl magic, we can do it again and again. Today is indeed time for us to be unafraid to stop the madness and the murders of our builders, our leaders, our teachers, our women, our children. Monuments and statues and museums have the capacity to remind us of all of our actions and inactions. Unfortunately, from the lack of statues and monuments and historic parks that honor our people, it appears that we are trying to forget who we are and that we are Black Girl Magic. I'm here to state in no uncertain terms that it is our duty to make history every day by doing what we do, loving on our people, loving our mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers, embracing our magic and building historical monuments to them for our children's sake. Let us be the ones to find the courage to read more books, build more historic sites, not just here in the Mississippi Delta, but in Africa too, that embrace our pain, our passion, our love for one another, our progress, and our magic. That is how we safeguard our humanity and secure our well-being on our terms. This is also how we show each other that we too have a love and respect for our history. And we will preserve our tools of empowerment for our girls because it is magic. The poem that Dr. Maya Angelou read at the Million Man March reminds us that the night has been long, the wound has been deep, the pit has been dark, and the walls have been steep. Under a dead blue sky on distant beaches, I was dragged by my braves just beyond your reach. Your hands were tied, your mouth was bound, you couldn't even call out my name. You were helpless, and so was I. Unfortunately, throughout history, we've worn a badge of shame, but today, voices of old spirit sound and speak to us in words profound. Across the years, across the centuries, across the ocean, and across the seas, they say, draw near to one another, save our race, save your legacy. You have been paid for in distant places. The elders remind us that slavery's chains have paid for our freedom again and again. The hells we have lived through and live through still have sharpened our senses and toughened our will. I know that with each other we can make ourselves whole. Let us come together and reveal what has never been told, our true history. Let us come together and rewrite our downtrodden story and stop impostoring our own history. Call the spirits back from the ledge. Let us invite joy into our conversations again. The ancestor spirits are here to remind us, despite the history of pain, we are a going on, making a way out of no way kind of people who will rise again and again, because we are Black Girl Magic. Thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you very soon. And if you would like to be a part of our movement that we have here going on in the Mississippi Delta to build a monument to Grandma Manil for picking all that damn cotton, please do contact us. We're at www.cottonpickers.us. And again, I'm Dr. Sade Turnipseed, and I thank you so much for all the love that I feel coming from you. Take care. Bye-bye.